What's your creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? I remember being pretty young, like 9 or 10, and I was the car park of a pub in England, Southend. I remember seeing someone in their teens in the window of a house looking over the car park. They waved at me and I felt like I knew them somehow. My parents asked who I was waving at and I said just some lady in the window over there. Didn't think much of it. Fast forward 10 years. I was at my nan's new house. I remember walking into her room, which I never was allowed to do, going to the window. I then realized I was in the house looking over that same parking lot and remembering that interaction years before. And a girl around 9 or 10 who was in said car park waved at me and I waved back. I felt like I knew her. Could not explain it and have never told anyone about it. It freaked me out. Weird but happy. About 5 years ago in November we lost our family dog to cancer. She was the dog my children grew up with. Loved by all. At the next Christmas. At the end of the day of gifts. Food and family. As I was picking up. I found a tiny pewter dog figurine sitting on the mantle. I asked everyone who had been at the house that day if they left it. No one had. Okay. Weird. But took it as a good omen. When my eldest went back to college at the end of that Christmas break, he asked if he could take the little figurine to remember his dog. Of course. I said yes. A week or two later, picking up around the house, there was the figurine again. I called my son and said, "You forgot the dog figurine." He said, "No, I didn't. It's right in front of me on my desk." I had now found a second figurine. Again. No one claimed any knowledge of it. No idea how. But I still have the two of them tucked away on a shelf to this day. About a year ago me and my cousin visited Los Angeles. We were driving around using Google Maps and after missing our third or fourth exit we swear we both heard it sigh loudly before it rerouted us. We freaked out and made sure our driving was on point the rest of the ride. The rest of the trip there, if we missed any of our exits or turns, we always apologized to Google, so hopefully she would know we were just morons and not assholes. Removed a painting from the wall during a late evening cleaning. Put it away and returned to the wall to see a never before seen painting on the same spot. Put a chill down my spine. Not my story, but my grandpa's. So he served in the Navy and hadn't come home for 5 years. He finally got to go home. And on his way, he saw his old friend. Let's call him Wally. Wally was getting on his normal bus. And my grandpa shouted hi to him. But Wally didn't respond. But he didn't think much of it. Seeing how Wally didn't have the best hearing, Wally got on his bus and looked my grandpa in the eye as the bus drove away. Later, after he got home and was talking to his dad, he asked him how Wally was doing and told his dad about how he saw him earlier. His dad was silent for a minute and asked him if he was sure he saw Wally. My grandpa said yes. And his dad replied, "Wally died 6 months ago." I was on vacation on Florida visiting a friend. We were walking on the beach on a perfectly sunny day when everything went black for a second. I think it was weird but explained it away thinking that my eyes were playing tricks on me until he looked at me and said, "Did everything go black for a second?" The gods were quick saving the simulation. Might get buried but oh well. When I played baseball as a kid, they were handing out the trophies at the end of the season. They called out the names of the kids while we received our trophies. There happened to be a kid with the same name as me. We met after the ceremony because it was weird since our last name isn't a very common one. We had the same birthday and everything. We looked alike. Both our dads were named Derek and both of our sisters were named Lily. As a kid, I found it cool. As an adult, several years ago, I went home, turned on my PC, browsed the web for a bit, literally watched a video about the Matrix, then looked out of my window. Then I suddenly snapped awake sitting in my chair. I looked at my monitor to see that it had turned off. I thought strange. I must have fallen asleep and proceeded to move the mouse to wake my PC from sleep mode. It did not wake up. I was confused until I noticed that the power strip was not even plugged in. It had never been turned on in the first place. That one weirded me out for quite a while. I must have gone home. Fell asleep and dreamt the whole thing. At least I hope so. Edit. Small clarification. Edit 2. Added a T that changes the tone drastically. Nice theory though, you anonymous horror. My wife and I were at the local mall shopping. We were walking around in Spencer's and there was a display with a bunch of SI boxed outfits. Once we saw them, we both blurted out, "This looks like something Samantha, an acquaintance we both knew from mutual friends, would wear." At the exact same time. We started laughing about it, and as we walked around the corner, the Samantha we were talking about was looking at the exact same rack but from the other side. We were both like, what in the ... We hadn't seen her in probably a year or so before then. That left everyone scratching their heads for a bit. About 2 years ago, I went to collect my husband from the ferry after work. My husband got into the car, and as I was driving very slowly out of the car park, we both noticed two people standing a few meters in front of our car. It looked as though they were strangers. Older looking professionals. Both walking to their separate cars in different areas of the car park. The man was reaching into his side bag and the lady was further ahead than the man, with her head turned to the right. I know the exact positions they were in because they were completely frozen on the spot. My husband and I sat there watching the frozen strangers, not saying anything to each other, and then all of a sudden it was like someone pressed play and the two strangers just continued on like nothing had happened. My husband and I promised to each other that we would never forget how weird the experience was. I can't remember exactly how long they stayed frozen like that, but it was long enough to freak us both out. 1985. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. There was a small sliver of light coming in through the window from a street light, so the room and bed were dimly visible. Our black Pomeranian was at the end of the bed asleep. I dreamt that I woke up, reached down to pet him, and he turned into a glossy black bivalve oyster thing which opened up to reveal rows of gleaming glass teeth. I woke up to my ex backpedaling up the bed over the pillows towards the wall. I asked, "What's wrong?" She said, "What is that shiny black clam thing with the teeth at the end of the bed? Where's the dog?" We had had the same nightmare at the same time. This still gives me a chill. Sorry that your dog was haunted. I have a jade Buddhist necklace I bought in China about 10 years ago. It disappears for months at a time only to reappear somewhere obvious like my desk, my dresser, in a drawer I use every day. I just say it goes on a trip and will come back eventually. Two things. Each was witnessed by at least one other person and both were while driving. Once at a stop sign in a neighborhood. All of these little sparkles started swirling around in midair roughly 3-4 ft off the ground out of nowhere. The group of them were roughly 2 feet wide by 3-4 ft tall. It lasted 3-5 seconds and then they were gone. No one was around, and when I asked my passenger if he saw it too, he breathed a sigh of relief and said yes. We spoke about it a little more, but there is no reasonable explanation. The second happened when myself and 3 friends were driving down an empty country road. Very straight stretch. A man on a bike appeared. Someone said to watch out for him, so not to hit him, and then he disappeared. Our minds were blown to say the least. Just poof and he's gone. I was driving about 50 miles per hour. The car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact, and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rear view, just about to pull out. As someone who just watched all the Final Destination movies, I can confidently say that you're going to die. Once when we were kids, I had some friends with an Ouija board at the basement of the building where I lived. Through the stairs there was an elevator shaft that had these wide bars where you could stick your arm in them. Typical old elevator design. So one night, they decided to go to the basement to do another Ouija session. and I decided to drop a cup of glass through the shaft. Just to scare them off. I let go of the cup. Saw it vanish into the darkness. And I never heard the cup hit the ground. I stood there. Confused. Next day, I went downstairs at the basement with one of my friends. And the cup was there. Placed in the middle of the elevator shaft floor. The cup was upright. And intact. I was seriously freaked out by that. Because it would be impossible to someone enter the elevator shaft and place the cup there like that. The cup should have broken into pieces since I threw it from the 10th floor against a cement floor. The entire world have slowed down for me a couple of times in my life. My best guess is some kind of adrenaline spike causing my brain to go into overdrive. It's an odd thing where people close to me talk about things I was previously thinking of before I see them. After my little brother was murdered the next morning, I was talking with a friend and he mentioned this other dude I went to high school with younger brother had died in a car accident a couple weeks before. Later that day I pull out a slip of paper with this other dude's number and name on it from my pants. I vaguely remember running into him a year or so before this at a club where he gave me his number. I swear I had worn and washed these jeans at least a dozen times since I had run into this dude. I still makes no sense how that paper was there and I only found it then. I called the dude and we talked a bunch. It really helped me deal with the situation. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused but my dog looked completely fine. For your information, I don't drink or do drugs. My sister pretended to feed my bear when we were kids. I saw the beans on the spoon. She put it to his mouth and scooped. Showed me the spoon and the beans were gone. No beans on his lip. Nothing. Like he actually ate it. She never told me how she did it and she doesn't remember doing it now. I assume you're talking about a teddy bear but I kind of hope you're not. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, hey, this one is real, don't lose it. Full stop. When I was living with my parents, my dad was cleaning out one of his drawers and found a piece of paper with a postcode for a nearby city on. When he showed me, I immediately recognized it as my own handwriting, except I have no memory of ever writing out this postcode. So I punched the postcode into maps to find it is a random street I have never visited before and I have no reason to visit it. I wish I had have gone. Maybe the universe was trying to show me something. Around 12 years old, I was watching Megas XLR. Or something that was on at the time. Sitting there, I noticed that the sun just turned off. Like completely. I was real confused. Opened the blinds and it was dark. Show was still at the same spot. But the clock on the cable box said it was 5 hours later. My best guess for what happened was that I passed out without realizing it. Like those nights where you lay in bed and blink and suddenly it's morning. So I'm guessing I fell asleep sitting up. For exactly enough time to have Cartoon Network play a run of the show get to the exact spot I fell asleep at. I should have fallen into the River Thames once. Me and some friends from uni were exploring London and taking pictures beside the Thames when I decide posing next to the wall is a weak photo. So decide to climb up for better photo opportunities. As I hoisted myself up, I must have used far too much power and knew fully I was about to go straight over and into the river. Which was like a 20-foot drop. I managed to get 1 foot onto the wall and felt something completely stop my momentum. Almost felt like divine intervention in a way. I stood up straight. Alive and still on dry land. As I turned to express how close I was to dying there, and then someone took a photo of me. Which is still one of the best photos I've had taken of me to date. I've told this story before and could go into a ton of detail, but here's the short version. I am 100% sure I vividly remember a dog that apparently doesn't exist. When I was 16, we lived on the other side of the province and my uncle had this little Jack Russell named Crew. Crew went missing for several months and then turned up at a humane society over an hour away, and we were all shocked this little dog has made it so far. Anyway, that was almost 20 years ago, and the other day I was talking to my parents and was like, whenever I hear about Jack Russells I think about Crew and that stunt he pulled, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Insisted my uncle had never had such a dog. I must have dreamed it. Etc. Honestly, anyone else who would have remembered this dog has been dead for a long time, and I don't even have any pictures of my uncle. I have absolutely no way to prove this dog existed, but I'm sure that he did. When I was a kid I had a dream. A bunch of us kids were playing hide and seek near my house out in the snow. I started digging into the snow to hide and came across a dead girl. The very next day, I was walking home from school and pretty much in the exact same area I dug in my dream. I saw the girl. Same hair. Same face. Same jacket. I was across the street, but I kept staring at her while walking. She eventually noticed and I ran off. Never saw her again. Was the weirdest thing ever. A total of 3 times in my life I have had memories of seeing movie trailers that hadn't been made yet. It's not even a feeling of deja vu. It's a clear, vivid memory of seeing the movie before. Edit. The movies were The Blind Side, Devil and Prometheus. I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift, breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car. Fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. 10mm. That happens all the time. I remember driving my car to this intersection in this rural area and I'm checking both sides because of terrible blind spots. In the corner of my eye my mother is sitting there and says something like it's all clear my way. I look back and she isn't there. My mother had been dead for a few years at this point. This was also in the middle of the day and I've never had it happen since. Edit. Wow, my first award. Thanks. I was reading Kurt Vonnegut's last book, Timequake, and had put it in my backpack to read while on the bus. I left the house and for some reason about a block later I thought to myself, did I put the book in my bag? I looked and it wasn't there. Went back to the house and couldn't find it. Retraced my steps to where I turned around and it was nowhere to be found. I never found the book again. And gave up on trying to get another copy. I think it was Vonnegut's way of telling me it wasn't worth the read. More likely Vonnegut's way of getting you to buy another copy. I don't personally remember this, but I would see my dead grandfather all the time when I was a kid. From the ages of 7-9 there was probably 10 different incidents. My dad was an absolute pansy when it came to ghosts, which I don't really believe in, and wanted to take me to the doctor. My dad had one of those bathrooms with a separate toilet room and no one that lived in the house closed the bathroom door unless they were bathing. I was playing RuneScape and my dad asked why the bathroom door was closed. And I said it's because grandpa's in there. That's the only one I actually remember. There was maybe 2 other bathroom incidents and some incidents when I would sit on the floor and watch TV with my dad and he would tell me to go sit in what was once my grandfather's chair and said I couldn't because grandpa was sleeping. I don't know how creepy these are tbh, but they freaked out my family for sure. My friend Sarah was in a nightclub, drunk off her face, and she got an overwhelming urge to tell a total stranger that her leg hurts. Edit. It didn't. All a bit strange. She ignores it but it doesn't stop, so she walks up to this guy and says, I know this is crazy but I've got a huge urge to tell you my leg hurts. I know that's crazy. Again. Sorry. Apostrophe. But he bursts into tears. Turns out his dad had just died and they made a pact before that if there was an afterlife he would get a message to him saying a totally random phrase. So there could be no mistakes. which they decided was os. I either hurt my leg. Every time I drop something and it literally disappears to nothingness. Like WTF. When the song The Final Countdown was released in the 80s, I already knew it. It was brand new. Just released. But I knew the tune and the words and could sing the whole thing beginning to end. I believed for a while that it was a cover version. But it wasn't. I don't know if it's true. But I remember my father, who was a kid in the 80s, telling me that The Final Countdown was released and wasn't successful. But then released again a year later and that's when it exploded. That would explain that. It isn't creepy, but when I was in high school I had a dream I was in all white classroom, totally white. Like the ones you would see in a dream. And a girl was sitting in the chair on my side. During the dream, I knew it was a dream because that girl was a senior. We didn't have common classes. About 6 years later, I was at a master class. The sun was shining bright outside. The classroom was very illuminated. And I see this girl on my side. We are doing masters together. And having a class. In all white in classroom. Of course I remembered the dream at that very moment. Edit. Ooh, 6k upvotes guys. Edit 2. My first award. Thanks. 3 times in the last year I have had a strong feeling to comment to someone about a part of their body. I've not done so because they're people I don't see often and b, it would be weird. But a few weeks after each one of those people were diagnosed with cancer in the part of the body I felt I needed to comment on. If I get that feeling again, don't care who it is, I'm gonna say something. Hey. I know we don't speak often but your ass is cancer. Have a great day. I always have weird visions or I'll see something in a dream. But I won't notice that I've seen it. Then like a week or so after I'll see the exact same thing. Almost like deja vu but not quite since it hasn't actually happened before. It would always be something so specific and it has happened multiple times so it can't just be a strange coincidence. Edit. It's very reassuring to see all the stories of people experiencing the same thing. Assures me that I'm not going insane. Or maybe many others are just going insane with me. I won't be able to read them all as my phone's being blown up with them, but I'll try my best. Taking the trash out at night. Super remote area so I know for a fact we're the only ones around here. Getting close to the road and I hear very clearly help me from a female voice. Even knowing there's such a slim chance of there being another living person around. I still feel like I should look around and check it out in case I wasn't just hearing things and someone actually needs help. Take about 2 steps in the direction I thought I heard it. Hear a giggle in the same exact voice. Turn around and walk promptly back up the driveway because that. Anyone who actually needed help wouldn't be laughing. I don't think. I had a dream that I went to my boss's door in the morning for a carpool. Knocked on the door and then heard the garage door open. My boss is standing there with no shirt on and track pants. He said he hurt his back. I said he wouldn't be able to work like that. He said he wouldn't be but he would show us what to do. Woke up and went to work and picked my co-worker up and told him about my dream. We laughed and said he probably would do that because he is a slave driver. Exited the car, walked to the door. Knocked. Garage door opened. Boss standing there with no shirt and track pants. Boss. I threw my back out. Me. You can't work like that. Boss. Yeah, I'm not, but you guys can and I'll show you what to do. And no one would have believed me had I not told my co-worker moments before.